And it works, and it works. Welcome to the second part. A lot of things have happened since last time we chatted. There's been wars and for reasons, and the media coverage has become stupider and stupider and stupider as time goes by. And I'm sometimes sad that for this kind of work that I do in writing books, I have to sometimes go back and actually listen to what's happening on Twitter and on medias. And we live in a clown world that is becoming, we have, in the traditional circuses, you have the funny clown, and then you have the sad clown.
Right.
Clown world is becoming more and more like the sad clown with nukes. How do you see this? How can you comment of what's happening over the last, I don't know, 2 years, really?
Oh man, there's so much that I feel like we're being mocked. Really, like in most cases, because you look at these things, you're like, that person is obviously not competent, or that person that couldn't be, like, no one would believe that person, and yet they do. And it's and even like with everything that happened with the virus and everything like that, whatever that turned out to be, it was a lot of the people just want to forget it, that it happened. All of the bad things that happen, a lot of people just want to pretend it didn't happen. Like, I think there's so many people that are traumatized from that in different way. I mean, I am. I sold my house and moved to another state because I was like, I'm not living like this. And so I'm very aware of it. I don't forget it at all. But a lot of people, I think, just want to pretend, oh, that didn't happen, and then like move on. And the things that made that happen are still happening. They're just moving forward, and it's really kind of difficult to watch. I mean, I moved to a new state just recently and participated in my first obviously fake election, which was weird. Like I went in to vote, and half of the machines in the entire county were not working. So they would have the lines because the other party voted on voting day, and the other ones got pre-voted, and so we went in, and I literally had a woman stand and rub the machine and be like, let's hope this one works. And I'm like, really? I'm like, that's what we're doing now. And so, I mean, then there's lawsuits about that, whether that's real or not, but it's just it is a strange world, and it's a clown world, and it is a little bit of a sad clown, in terms of, there's this whole trans thing, and you mentioned transhumanism, and which I've been aware of that since I thought it was neat in the 1990s. I was following. There was this artist in France named Orlan. She did all kinds of weird plastic surgery to herself, like to look like different paintings. And I thought that was in art school. I thought that was the neatest thing, But I was just a kid. And so I've been aware of that kind of thing, but transhumanism, we talked about it a little in the last episode. There's this quest. The quest for not dying has been around since the Epic of Gilgamesh. I mean, it's literally the whole part of the story is, how can I not die? And they're telling him that you're gonna die. But it's a very natural human instinct to want to prolong that. Unfortunately, I think the people who are prolonging it, like, why would we want them around longer? But it's a shame, but it is something that's really influential. And there's this commentator in America by the name of James Lindsay, and he's really brilliant. He has this YouTube channel called New Discourses, and puts out a lot of and he really deconstructs the religion of Marxism. Mm-hmm. And how that's actually created all of this, and how it's kind of this nihilistic Gnostic cult, like Gnostic death cult. I'd recommend anyone looking into his work, because it's just it reminds me of the things I talked about in Becoming a Barbarian.
Yes.
But he talks basically about the empire of nothing, but at an extremely resolute level of depth. So I've kind of started to take up his terminology in a lot of things. It's like, when you look at what's happening with, whether it's, trans people or whatever, and you see that it's all part of the same machine, to really break reality, and that's kind of the whole idea, is like, let's break reality so that nothing's real and nothing makes sense. And then they believe that something magical is going to happen after that, which is what the crazy part is, but it's just breaking things and not fixing them. Basically, is what they're doing.
It's the part where you die and you end up on a comet somewhere in space.
Oh, yeah. Like Heaven's Gate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, I think there's quite a lot of scholars who have figured out that Marxism, and maybe even starting with Nietzsche, found that it's a sort of death cult for weak slave mentality people. And it gives you the illusion that you don't need to do any of the tactical virtues. In fact, not even any effort. And therefore, you will reap very, very religious aspect, you will reap the fruit of the world without having to do anything, because you will just take from the rich, which have obviously stolen everything from others. And this idea, strangely enough, has always failed with millions of dead every time, in every continent, in every latitude, in every culture. What could go wrong this time?
You have to break a lot of eggs to make that omelet. You know, a lot of eggs. Yeah, and it never stays. It never lasts. But you just kill millions of people in the process.
In fact, if you listen to them, you have to break all of the eggs.
Unless that's the whole dialectical process, right? You break all the eggs. Yeah,
all the eggs. What could go wrong? But anyway, China and Russia doesn't seem to, and many, and as we've discovering, 80% of the world is actually supporting these two countries in discrete ways, but sometimes not so discrete, quite obvious, in fact. Maybe the how do you see this split in the world? You have the American empire and its owners, as you fondly say, which spreads a bit, but less and less, is weaker and weaker. We discover that in Europe, they wanted to send some battle tanks to Ukraine. And we discover that, in fact, we don't make them anymore for the last 15 years. And therefore, we don't have the skills to make them anymore. These things disappear if you stop making them. It's going to take a decade before we even build factories again that can make the whole complexity of a main battle tank. And this is not rocket science, but it's still science. And we're discovering that the production of weapons that we make in a year in Europe is equivalent of what Russia produces in a day. It's not going to end up well if we go to war. And yet, the politician class, the elite class, the journalist class, they push for it, they push for it. As you said, this disconnection with reality, it's going to end up not well.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what they're really getting at. I mean, my take, after the past 3 years, I don't really believe anything that anyone says about anything. So it's kind of, like, who's okay, you're lying, whatever. It's like the American politicians, like, how many of them are really just in the pocket of China anyway? I mean, I think most of them. And, like there's this idea that half of them are in the pocket of Russia and half of them in the pocket of China. And, that they're probably just laundering money through Ukraine, because huge amounts of money, more than they spent in the past 20 years on wars, they're just throwing at it. And nothing's happening, and they're not doing it. They're just, just throwing money. And I think that they didn't want it traced. Like one of the politicians was like, can we see what happens to where any of that goes? They're like, no, we're not going to do that. Because they're probably just stealing it. And so I feel like there's kind of this international oligarchy that's like, of people, when it's not like people want to say it's one group. And I think it's probably like, Bill Gates and like, the WEF and a whole bunch of people that are getting together and like, hey, let's tell them they're going to have communism. And, maybe we'll have to kill a lot of people, but we're still going to be rich, and that's the way communism works out, really. I mean, like I remember when we were in Poland, actually, I think, were you at that dinner? We went to this restaurant that was, all the things on the menu were based on all the things that the communist, like, high party officials got to eat, I mean, that's kind of how communism works out, right? All the party officials are living the life, and then everybody else is just poor and standing in line for bread, So I think that's kind of what they're pushing to have happen again. Kind of, people talk about like a new serfdom or a new feudal system where you have get rid of the middle class because they're paying. Which is so unfortunate because we have such a fantastic existence right now. Like, it's really amazing. Like, I moved to Arizona. I live in a place that looks like a golf course. And like everything's beautiful. It's like a tropical paradise everywhere you want to go. Everything's nice. People are nice little families. They have golf cart parades. It's it's amazing, But why would you want to destroy this? but that seems to be the case. They're like, well, we're going to have our own golf cart parades, but not you.
Yeah, especially since the middle class is the one that makes all the machinery work.
Yes.
The machinery is what keeps alive the oligarch class. And because, in the Soviet times, and I've certainly lived through the African oligarchs in the 90s, when they were sick, they were coming to Switzerland. Because you cannot rely on the local healthcare, for example, or the local machinery to work. So everything had to be imported from the free world, or at least the world where you have free market economy. And if they want to turn the world into a feudal class, into a feudal system, well, I don't think they're going to have nice teeth for a long time and good health, because, or they will go to China to get treated, or to Switzerland, let's hope. But it is a very strange thing to kill the goose of the golden egg that made you rich. But insanity is quite common within humans, especially powerful humans. They get to be surrounded by people who say yes.
I mean, the scariest thing that I've seen, the scariest theory, because everything's just a theory right now. Who knows what's happening? Like, I don't claim to have a theory that's right. But one of the things that I've seen floated around is just because AI is going to replace so many people. That are they just euthanizing us because like we're not going to need you anymore, there's so many things. I mean, if you look at so many things that middle class people do, I mean, yeah, there's the people who run factories and important things, but there's a lot of people who just send emails, and like ChatGPT can already do their jobs, and there's a lot. All they do is repeat things that they've heard. And you're like, most reporters, that's all they do. Like, rephrase this press release, that's all you can have to do. So, and you're seeing that happen. I've been playing with AI art because you can't make it go away. It's going to be here. I've been using that a lot, and it makes you be like, wow, this is doing amazing, beautiful things now. It only took like less than a year for it to get to garbage to, this is pretty impressive. This is nice. Another 2 years, where's it going to be?
I think you're right. I think that's a very good theory. In fact, for the record, because we know that the AI is listening, I like her very much, or it. I like you very much. I want to be very kind to you, and I hope you will be very kind to me. So let me put this record straight. I actually love you a lot.
Is that what we're going to have to do in like 2 years? We're going to be like, I love you, AI. Please don't send the murder robots.
It's very possible. Now, here's the question. What would Conan do?
What would Conan do?
They say, what would Jesus do? Well,
yeah.
What would Conan do?
Well, everything that he would do is illegal, so we should probably not talk about that.
You mean kill camels?
Yeah, hit camels and so forth. But I mean, obviously, once you start talking about all those, there are many solutions that can be done, but all of them are, you don't want the FBI to have the conversation. So, or AI, obviously there are many things, whatever, but they all involve, issues. But anyway, but I did want to mention that because I said I was going to bring it up, but something we found, I did a podcast, that Dragon Integration story is actually on that link that I sent you, that page where I narrated it so people can actually listen to it.
I will.
And we also did a podcast on the Rig Veda, because I have a guy in my group who actually speaks and reads Sanskrit. And so the Rig Veda, if you really look at it, it's all hymns. But if you really look at it, you're like, wait, all of a sudden, as you drill down, you're like, well, there's this warrior. And there's this greedy sorcerer who's also named as a snake, and he's a snake sorcerer. And then wait, he at first he's just called a snake, but then called a sorcerer, and then like he has many sorcerers and many slaves. I'm like, that's Thulsa Doom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Thulsa Doom. Like, and then all of a sudden, you look at the Rig Veda, and all of a sudden, there's a story in there about like a warrior fighting Thulsa Doom, and like that. It's just amazing that is kind of buried in there, but it's because it's all in hymns, but it's there. It's very interesting.
Well, no one said it was just a mythical story. Huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously one population warring with another, and they have all the stuff when we want it, and that kind of thing, and then you mythologize that out.
Yes. No, you must have had really a lot of fun studying these compared mythologies, because the more, and I'm sure the more you study them, and I went to it from a different angle. Maybe you don't know, but I was fascinated in the 90s by the work of Graham Hancock about pre-Diluvian civilizations, which we don't really know much about because they're probably under the sea, whoever they are and whatever they are. But what was interesting is that there are common myths, as you said, the deluge myth. You find it in Mesoamerica, you find it in the Black Sea area, you find it in Turkey, you find it in Mesopotamia, you find it in Egypt, you find it everywhere. And of course, all the archaeologists say, oh yeah, but these are just myths, And the Egyptians, in the Egyptian text, they say, no. We are much older than the date that archaeologists say. And they say, no, but these are foundational myths, it doesn't matter. The mix between reality and mythology fits with anthropology and common experiences everywhere in the world. What are the fascinating things that struck you the most throughout your research?
Well, I mean, I think I tend to be a language nerd. I mean, I don't speak many languages, but we have such power right now that we can just drill through, like, look at all the languages and what words started and where did it go back to? Oh, 5,000 years. Okay, great. What does that mean in 5,000 years ago? And so I like doing that, because you can use dictionaries and so forth to get there really quickly. And so you start to see these patterns evolve. Like I said, the name for king is so old. It goes into the Sanskrit and it goes into that Rex up to the point that the English monarchs still use Rex and Regina in their title. Yes. And it's all the same word that goes back to Proto-Indo-European. And so it's very
Tsar means Caesar.
Huh?
The Russian Tsar.
Yeah.
Tsar comes from Caesar, and Kaiser comes from Caesar as well.
Nice. Yeah, that stuff is amazing to me. Oh. That's the stuff that I think is really exciting. I mean, there's so many connections. The word Rita, which is Sanskrit, but is also comes from this H2ER in the Proto-Indo-European, and it means to put things together, and it means order and creating order. And so we use that a lot, like when I talk about things. And there's just, and that's something that men have always done, make order. And so finding those patterns, I think, are the most exciting things linguistically, but also just it's great to just keep exploring myth, because you see things, the more you do it, you see things more and more. Like you brought up that Circe thing that's connected to the thing that I said, which I hadn't thought about that part of it before. But so there's so many myths. As you keep going through these things, you keep seeing more and more elements that are close together. Like I said, I've read Epic of Gilgamesh probably 5 times, but I just read it with a group of guys. And so you have a whole bunch of guys, they're coming up with their own ideas of what they saw in it. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. No, I never thought of that. No, I never thought of that. So I seeing these myths kind of evolve in my own mind, and seeing more connections, and it's just very exciting. You get interested in different things aesthetically too. Like it just because I love Mesopotamian stuff now. Like I like everything cool is a ziggurat to me, but but obviously I appreciate the Roman stuff. I appreciate the old German stuff and so forth. And it's just great to see all these connections, and it shows how similar we are, to the fact that we can relate to these stories. And I think one of the things that I came across, I actually bought a harp a few years ago from Greece. I got it to play one song, which is one of the oldest songs in the world, which is that Epitapha Sikolos, I think. The word, I didn't even know it had words. I just learned to play it because I was like, oh, this is the oldest song. I should learn to play it on a lyre. But it starts with while you live, shine. Because it's basically like saying, like you only have so much time in life. And this theme that we've been talking about over and over in this conversation, and it just keeps back. And it's amazing to me that that's one of the things, of all the things that could survive through history, one of the first tunes that we have, the words to it are "While you live, shine, because you won't live forever and time stops." Like Kronos, it invokes that. But it's and that's comes back to that thing about negation. And the whole thing about nihilism and so forth. Like, be as awesome as you can be while you're alive, and be what you really want to be, rather than just being whatever. Who cares? Like do what because and that's my take on dealing with the world as it is right now. Like, I can't control what Russia and China are going to do. I do not have that kind of power. Or Russia and China, or corrupt American politicians, or whatever is going on. I can't control that, but I can try to do the things that I think are cool, or beautiful, or meaningful right now. And until whatever happens, and then you don't know what that is, and so you have to go with it. But if you can keep, doing what you really believe in, what you think is good, that's really the best that you can do in life.
Completely agree. In fact, you probably know this guy, Peter Pringle, who's an amazing musician.
Yes.
He sang the Lament of Gilgamesh in the approximate
cuneiform. Yeah. In the Mesopotamian, Sumerian. Yeah.
And what is amazing, by the way, it's a song of a warrior, of a striker, lamenting the death of one of his fellow warriors, and used to be enemy as well. And it's very touching. I was, if the translation is correct, it's a very touching word. Like, you lament a comrade in arms that has died. So you're right. These common themes remind me of a text I read. I cannot remember which one, of samurai, again after the battle, lamenting the death of his comrades, and so on. You find these same themes across the world, and across civilizations, which is really a positive thing, because we come from, over the last 20 years, you and I, we've been in touch with groups who, for good reasons, sometimes they had hate.
Yeah.
But that hate doesn't make you grow.
Right.
And you need to move into the brotherhood. Yes, you need to move into the way of man, to be a man again. And then you move to the more spiritual approach, which is, as you said, as Stoics would say 2,000, 3,000 years ago, what you cannot control, you don't care. You just have to focus on what you can, which is usually yourself, your mind, your emotions, and make yourself a greater man for the greatest tribe you can possibly be in. And that's enormous already. It's and what's interesting is, when we have the same silly things here with woke and all that, the beautiful thing is, when you are strong enough in your mind, mostly in your mind, the body as well, but the mind is the most important. When you have all these people who come to you and basically ask you for whatever, to retrain you for whatever sensibility classes in the company or whatever, when you have the strength to say no, they melt. They may still fire you. They may still make sure that you cannot go into certain places, but they melt. You can see that they are nothing. And the dragon, I will read that story, but certainly it feels to me that this dragon of nihilism is a sort of paper dragon. If you say no, he has no power, at least on you. And which is a very satanic, this Luciferian idea that it's a lawful evil approach. It has to have you have to consent to that evil. You cannot. And if you say no, you don't consent, then
you have to invite the vampire into your house.
Exactly. But that's these vampire myths, which are really interesting as well. It's more recent, of course, but they fit with what you said before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many of these stories to tell, and to tell children. In fact, you were mentioning Gilgamesh. I was getting my kids to read that recently, so we'll see what they learn from it. And
how old it's a little racy. How old are they?
Yeah, the small one is 9,
Yeah.
and he had a few questions.
yeah. There is a kids version, I think, but
I don't know, but
it takes out the sex with the prostitute out. But
yeah, no, unfortunately, it's a way of life.
well, yeah, no, absolutely, deal with life. Yeah,
it happens. But yeah, very, very interesting. So let's we should chat again on Cimmerian and Tulsa Doom's deeds across India 5,000 years ago.
yeah.
But I didn't know that story, but that's fascinating. Anyways, I wish you well. And I remind for people who are listening that your books are translated everywhere, including French, for my French, mostly French audience. But of course, they can get to your blog, which remind me the name. I will put it in the description anyway.
I'm on Instagram at Start the World, and my website, I really publish on that. I publish, if I ever write anything specific, I write it through my newsletter. So you can sign up for it on my website, but jack-donovan.com. And then I am on Twitter at PH2T3R because Jack Donovan was taken. I got on when Elon Musk bought it. And so I've only been on for a year. But so I'm on there as that. And then like I said, you can probably put up a link to that YouTube channel for the Order of Fire and then my YouTube. But the Order of Fire is my group that I started. So
I will do so.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time. We'll chat again.
Thank you.